Moving? Okay.
You can choose.
Yeah, so maybe I invite you to start. So the stage is yours. Use your time, your questions you have to the audience. And I think it's really great to have you here and that you use this group and this INTRAC meeting for a first hearing and some kind of review actually as well. So
Okay.
I give over to you. And by the way, I will start also, I hope that's fine for you all, the recording now so that other people can have a look later, okay?
Okay. I think you choose wisely because if you start by me, things will get better after, okay? It will always get better. I can assure you that.
Please don't feel under pressure, okay? We are a very informal group.
Okay, as I told you before, my name is Joana Antão, and I would like to start by thanking all the INTRAC members and its board for this amazing opportunity to share our work, and also to thank everyone that is here today for this couple of hours, and for some of you it's a really difficult timetable to reflect together about living care. I hope we can contribute to enrich this discussion while talking a bit about the Portuguese situation. So our chapter is called High Time to Develop Policy and Practice for Care Leavers, Early Beginnings in Portugal. And as you will see, at least compared with other European countries, we are really in the early beginnings. I'm sorry if my English is not that good and I usually talk a bit quick, so let me tell you if you're not understanding me. Let me start by saying that in Portugal, 97.3% of children in care are placed in residential care. It's huge. And we are talking about large institutions with an average of 20 children per house right now. So only 2.7% of children at risk are now placed in foster families. As all of you must be aware, this is the opposite of the usual practice in the rest of Europe, and the opposite to all the recommendations in international guidelines. It's easy to understand that this fact is particularly worrying at the time of leaving alternative care. Besides this major problem that is right on the beginning, Portugal is one of the countries where no legislation on living care exists, with a total lack of recognition of the figure of care leaver. Therefore, Portugal does not provide any support for those who leave alternative care for an independent life. So as soon as you leave the child protection system, care leavers are left to themselves without at least formal social support. And then we have the problem number 3. I'm talking about the big problems. That is the fact that the number of studies about youngsters' pathways that leave alternative care for an independent life in Portugal is very limited. We have almost no studies in this field, and those that exist focus only on specific realities or have really small samples. So there are no studies about these pathways. This lack of investigation also reinforces the importance of working in this field. And in fact, it also reflects the lack of investment that we've seen in Portugal in the last years. SOS Children's Villages International say that the transition from alternative care to adulthood is characterized by alarming gaps. I really like this expression, I use it a lot, but I would dare to say that in Portugal, these gaps are bigger and exist in 3 main areas: in research, as I told you, in policy and aftercare rights, because there is no legislation, and in support for care leavers. And this support, we have a lack of support while they are in care. There is no preparation for leaving out and after leaving care without formal support. To fill some of these gaps, we developed a project that is called All Together, that my colleague and lifetime friend, Francisca Pimentel, will briefly present. So now it will start to getting better.
So the All Together project, promoting children's autonomy on alternative care, was co-founded by the European Commission and coordinated by FDES in Portugal. That's our organization, in partnership with PAGE, also from Portugal, Sirius from Croatia, and SAPI from Bulgaria. These projects' main goal were to increase national and transnational cooperation on the rights of child policy in alternative care, and to increase children's life skills for independent living before they leave alternative care, and also to increase integrated support for all children and young people after leaving alternative care for an independent life. In order to respond to these objectives, 3 areas of action were developed: advocacy, related to the developing of legislation and policy, training and capacity building of professionals that work in residential care, and support services for young people, like creation of an info desk, workshops on independent life, for promotion of life skills, discussion groups with youngsters, and mentorship program. In our chapter, we will focus just on the first area, advocacy, that consisted in a creation of national expert groups constituted by experts in the field, professionals that work in services of protection, of child protection, in research, and a group of caregivers representatives that work, and all these people work together in order to develop common methodologies on working methods about living care. And in our opinion, the participation of caregivers was very, very important, because it allowed to develop more consistent recommendations that in fact respond to the concrete and specific needs of these target groups. And we think the main difference was this. But my colleague João Pedro will talk about some of our results and conclusions.
Thank you, Francisca. We were working to reach some conclusions and simultaneously trying to get some results. And the results?
Easier access to political decision-making, the document sharing race problems awareness, better foster care funding, funding, legalization that provides for the grace period, the possibility of returning to foster care if an autonomous life fails, provision for care leaver figure, training, employment, etc. Discussions around nomination of children's commission, more dynamic activities, creation of informal groups of young experts, more involvement of professional and promotion of awareness in the community. Thank you.
So thank you very much to the 4 colleagues from, as I heard, from different, are you from one city? Are you all from Lisbon?
Lisbon city.
Are you all from Lisbon?
Yes.
Okay.
Oporto, Coimbra, and Lisbon.
Okay. So thank you very much. So for your insights into, on the one hand, the policy in Portugal, and on the other hand, on your research, and as I heard at the end, also in some suggestions, or maybe even more to the policy and care living policy in Portugal. So maybe I just invite the audience to ask question. You can ask a question to our colleagues from Portugal directly, or you can write it down in the chat, but I think both of it is possible. some questions or some remarks?
Because sometimes speaking English for all of us is a bit difficult. I put on chat, I put the website of the project because sometimes it's easier to read and to see. So if anyone wants to take a look after this, and if anyone has some questions after this also, I can put here our email and people can send us any questions if they have them, okay?
Belema, I think you have a question, right?
No, I do not have a question. I just want to say something, just in addition to what they presented. I thought that was an amazing presentation. Thank you, guys. And just to add that the situation in Nigeria is not that different than it is in Portugal. So, Joanna, I totally understand your frustration, you know, with the lack of policy in terms of preparation, in terms of the lack of support, you know, for care leavers, you know, after they have transitioned. I mean, in Nigeria, it was such a heartbreaking thing to find that before they graduate, before care leavers finally graduate into the world, into the system as young adults, as independent adults, because of the lack of guidelines into their preparation for adulthood, you know, they encounter a lot of challenges which still persist till today, you know, and that there's no such thing as support at all, you know. So because most of the times the residential homes depend solely on what is given to them voluntarily by good-willing individuals within the community. So there's not a structured care system, you know, that, you know, ensures that their preparation to adulthood and their transitions are smooth, you know, and that the challenges are not as much as they experience today. But unfortunately, that is not it. And I quite agree with you on the point that we need policy. You know, we need to talk about policy, because it's with the help of policy that the community would begin to talk about leadership. Stakeholders will begin to talk about how best to ensure that there's a proper structure to helping care leavers for when they leave. And I know there's a support that is there that would help them become the individuals that they are meant to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Belema. I don't know. Yeah, thank you.
You got it.
Yeah, because that's it. We have to have policies. We can't depend only on the goodwill and only on some institutions. In Portugal, two institutions work with care leavers. It's PAGE, where João Pedro Gaspar works, and it's PDES, where I work with Francisca. So it's not enough to have goodwill and good intentions. And what I think it was really good with this project is that we put it together, the politics and the people from foster homes and researchers, and then we put together also the young people, as you heard, and they said so amazing things about what they want to change, and listening to them was really amazing. Now they have a formal group that is called Young Experts. They are on Instagram and on Facebook, and they are trying to have their own voice and to talk for themselves. They already have been in some international conferences. So today I think they would talk really better than us, because they know what they want to change.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you for that. I mean, it's not, I don't know, sorry guys, but it's not all the time we have to talk about being resilient, because when you say that I have to be resilient just because I'm a care leaver, and if I do not have the strength within me to be resilient, I need support, I need help to, you know, enable me get there, you know, something, someone, anything, a system, a structure that would help me get there. You know, because it's not always, I have to be resilient. I mean, it's exhausting when you say that you have to be strong. You have to be strong. Once the structures are not there, that would enable you to be strong. You understand?
Can I ask a question about the group of young experts? So there was also a group at the user of the Change Factory. Maybe some of you saw them from Norway. And I asked myself, I mean, it's about how to influence policies and politicians. And you think they have more power than researchers to address the right people who are in charge of changes? Or what's your view of this? You know what I mean?
Yes. They are in the beginning. They are starting now because the project is ended in 2020. So they are now working, and they spend a lot of time discussing. In some of those discussions, we are with them. They are spending a lot of time discussing exactly that. What is our role? What are the advantages and disadvantages of being this kind of group? They also, we help them, and they looked for some groups that work like that internationally. They look for the Change Factory, also a group that I'm not remembering the name right now in Norway. They looked for some groups and why some groups are having good results and why some groups are having some problems. Some groups of young experts, for instance, are not going that well because they started by telling their own story. They were talking in, I lived this, and then they had some problems after because it was mainstream, but not a very good mainstream. So I don't know if I can answer to that question. I think that we are discussing it right now. I don't know if it's better or if they have more impact. I think it's a different impact. And they have to be really careful about how to do that, how is our role, and how can we say something that is useful without harming me or without harming my colleagues or without stigmatizing it, as you told in the beginning. So I think that this group, they went to some conferences, but they are giving small steps, and I think that's good because they are really thinking about what is our role and how can we adjust to these risks. I don't know if I answered, Samuel, because there is no answer for me.
Thank you, Joana. No, absolutely. That's a very good answer. I think important points as well. Also the sensitivity of being or going out on the big stage, as you mentioned. I think we know a lot from research also as far as biographies and of caregivers are concerned in some sensitive topics. So thank you very much. Further questions?
I want to ask about, you started with telling the statistics about what is going on in Portugal in terms of residential care. And I wonder if there is any discussion around this, like that there is going to be a change around it or there are efforts to change it. I just have to say that Israel, I thought that the situation in Israel is the worst because we have 75% of the children in residential care. And actually it was 80% for years, and now it's changing. So I wonder if you have kind of a discussion and if the care leavers group dealing with this issue too, because as you said, it's part of the difficulties with living care is living residential care compared to foster care or kinship care.
One of the recommendations that came out of this project by the young experts and by the experts was to work harder for foster families. And I don't know if it was a coincidence or if we had something to do with it. I want to believe that we did, but I'm not sure, because right now there's been that change in Portugal is starting right now. There was a new law a recent law that is now saying that NGOs can apply to be an NGO that collects foster families. I'm sorry, but talking in English about laws and policies is even harder than talking about working and field and people. So there is a recent law right now, and NGOs are now applying. So we hope that that change is starting now. I hope. I was clear? Sorry.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Maybe I just see in the chat that Eman from Egypt, she wrote, I suggest if we take turns, share the main challenges care leavers face upon transition based on research in each country. So also that's, as I understand it, it's about also the power of knowledge as well. So if we really know about the challenges and share what we know from research, we also, this is one maybe of the sources for changes in countries, if I understand it right.
So perhaps I will add something from Austria, because there the situation with support for care leavers is a bit the same as in Portugal. We have almost nothing at the moment, and social policy is not very much interested in changing things. And the experience also is that professionals from this field are not very well recognized from social policy and also science. So it's not so that policy is very much interested in scientific results about care leavers. The best is when care leavers speak for themselves. So this is the most impressive thing, when they stand up and say something about, so we have a very new care leaver organization in Austria, and when people from this organization, like the young experts in Portugal, say something about their situation, this is the most impressive thing. But on the other hand, it's a bit difficult, because they are in the situation of all young people and care leavers, so they have to do their work, they have to earn their money, they have to do this voluntary, and they have not so much time. And also, as let me say, Belema said, they have to be strong also to go into public, to go into parliament and somewhere else to discuss the topics. So on this point, it's also, I think, useful to think about a kind of support for these care leaver organizations. This is another point. They need some kind of structure to do these things. At the end, it's useful when they are able to, yes, to have voice and also to tell their perspectives. But it's very difficult for them because they have not so much time. They are very much engaged in Austria. They are very clever. I've seen, and also they have some success, but they have not so much time to do all these things. This is the other problem.
Thank you, Stefan.
Hello.
We can hear you, yes?
Yeah. Stefan, thank you so much. Actually, the situation here from Egypt is much the same to a great extent. I actually believe that the care leavers share the same, or let's say similar challenges all around the world. It's lack of system, it's lack of clear policies and structure, definitely. And even the NGOs and the other entities that are working to help care leavers are facing the same challenges as well. Developing structure, working on policies and decision makers. And I completely agree with your point on having the care leavers do the talk themselves and convey the message, this is the best way to relate the problem actually. But as you said, it's not all the time available for them, as they have their own challenges to deal with. But it's the best way to have this under the spotlight actually. So I just agree with you actually on the same or similar, let's say, challenges. And it's about structure. It's about having clear policies that are followed to help these care leavers upon transitioning from their care homes or even alternative families. That's it from Egypt. Thank you.
So thank you for this as well. I just realized that maybe this is one specific group. At first I thought there doesn't seem to be a specific group in Portugal, because all care leavers actually are faced with the same challenge of no policies. So it's equality of inequality somehow. And as Iman from Egypt also said, now it seems to be similar in many countries, although there are some very, very few countries who maybe have first policy. So we should not forget this. But there seems to be a group of political active groups or informal active groups. So I think these are also specific groups of care leavers who are engaged, as Stefan said, voluntary and maybe are going to some sensitive stages for themselves. And I think it's important not to oversee this group. This could be an important group for research as well, to see how are they organized and what challenges are they faced with, maybe also for peer research and not for also all the researchers, but just as allowed thinking and to make the bridge maybe to the second group, or presented by Marcela from Bolivia. So if there are last questions now to our colleagues from Portugal, I invite you to ask it now, or then we take it up at the end again. So thank you very much for your presentation.